Warriors, welcome back to Gods of Alliance. If you're here, it means you want power, knowledge, and control over the battlefield. This is not luck. This is strategy. Let's break the game together. Today, we are talking about one of the most dangerous support heroes to rise again in Hero Wars Alliance, Dorian. Because Warriors, this is not just a small update. This is a complete transformation. A new visual, a darker presence, a more aggressive identity, and, most importantly, a version of Dorian that now has the potential to completely reshape sustain-based teams. For a long time, Dorian was already respected because of his vampirism aura. But now, the rework gives him more consistency, more survivability value, and much more pressure inside prolonged battles. His healing becomes more oppressive, his effects spread more efficiently. And suddenly, heroes that already loved vampirism become absolute monsters. And Warriors, visually, this new Dorian finally looks like the dangerous, immortal vampire he was always supposed to be. The redesign is darker, cleaner, more intimidating, and far more fitting for the current direction of the game. So today, we break down every single skill change, every improvement, the new visual, and the strongest synergies, and teams that may now become nightmares because of this new Dorian. Let's break the game together. The first skill, Fountain of Blood, is where we immediately start to understand why this rework is dangerous. Before, Dorian already created sustain opportunities through healing and vampirism. But now, the mechanic becomes far more intelligent and much more oppressive in longer fights. Dorian applies the Fountain of Blood effect to the nearest enemy for 7 seconds, and while that target is marked, every allied attack against that enemy restores health. That alone is already powerful. But the biggest change is this. If the enemy dies before the effect ends, the effect transfers automatically to the next nearest enemy. Warriors, this is massive, because older versions of sustain mechanics could lose value when the target disappeared too quickly. But now the healing pressure continues flowing across the battlefield. The sustain does not stop. The aggression does not stop. And suddenly, heroes with rapid attacks or multi-hit mechanics become terrifying beside Dorian. Heroes like Dante, Iris, Lara Croft, Kira, Orion, and even Tempest compositions constantly trigger healing while attacking marked enemies. And notice something extremely important here. The healing scales from magic attack. That means building Dorian properly now increases the overall sustain power of the entire team even more effectively. This skill turns aggressive teams into self-sustaining machines. The second skill, Ancestor's Amulet, also received a very important strategic improvement. Dorian sacrifices part of his current health to massively increase the maximum health of the ally with the lowest health. Warriors. This sounds simple at first glance, but inside modern Hero Wars combat, this is incredibly valuable. Because the current meta is filled with burst damage, penetration, anti-healing pressure, and explosive assassinations. Heroes disappear instantly if they lack survival thresholds. But now, Dorian directly helps fragile carries survive lethal openings. And what makes this especially strong is that the effect lasts until the end of battle. This is not temporary sustain. This is permanent battlefield enhancement. Your fragile damage dealer suddenly becomes harder to eliminate. Your carry survives one extra combo. Your frontline gains additional breathing room. Your Iris survives long enough to erase an enemy team. Your Lara survives long enough to chain damage repeatedly. And remember, Warriors, this skill only affects allies that started the battle with Dorian. That means positioning and team construction become even more important now. This version of Dorian rewards intelligent drafting. The third skill, Wings of Night, remains one of the cleanest healing damage combinations in the game. Dorian attacks enemies while simultaneously healing allies for 100% of the damage dealt. And after the rework, this skill feels far more impactful because the entire hero identity now revolves around constant battlefield sustain. This ability scales very aggressively with magic attack, meaning every investment into Dorian now strengthens not only healing, but also his offensive contribution. And warriors. This matters because modern support heroes cannot simply stand there doing nothing anymore. Supports today must create tempo. This Dorian does exactly that. He damages enemies while instantly converting pressure into sustain for allies. And in prolonged battles, especially against control teams, this becomes incredibly frustrating to deal with, because while your opponent tries to slowly break through the front line, Dorian continuously restores health across the team. And now combine this with heroes that already possess self-healing, vampirism, dodge, or shield mechanics. Suddenly, the enemy feels like they are fighting immortals. The fourth skill, Blood Seal, is still the heart of Dorian's identity. And warriors. This remains one of the most dangerous support mechanics in Hero Wars Alliance. Dorian massively increases the vampirism of nearby allies. And, importantly, the effect remains active even after Dorian dies. This is exactly why Dorian has always been feared. You cannot simply eliminate him and expect the problem to disappear. The aura remains. The sustain remains. The pressure remains. And now, with the rework improving the consistency of his entire kit, Blood Seal becomes even more oppressive. Heroes beside Dorian can now reach absurd sustain levels. Dante becomes harder to kill. Kira can continuously restore herself during rapid attacks. Iris becomes incredibly annoying during soul explosions. Lara Croft benefits massively from repeated offensive pressure, and even frontline bruisers suddenly become much more difficult to finish. Warriors. Sustain metas are always dangerous, because once the healing surpasses incoming damage, the battle completely changes direction. And this new Dorian pushes exactly toward that reality. Now let's talk about Dorian himself, because visually this rework is absolutely excellent. This new design finally captures the feeling of an immortal predator. The darker eyes, the sharper armor, the cleaner vampire aesthetic, the more intimidating posture. Everything about this redesign feels more modern and more threatening. The old Dorian looked interesting, but this one truly looks dangerous. And importantly, warriors. Visual identity matters inside Hero Wars. Players connect more strongly with heroes that feel powerful visually. This version of Dorian finally looks like a hero capable of controlling life and death. Now briefly about the skins. The champion's skin looks aggressive and elegant at the same time. Very strong visual direction for players who prefer darker, armored aesthetics. The romantic skin is more playful but still keeps the vampire identity alive. It creates a very unique contrast compared to the darker versions. The masquerade skin feels chaotic and theatrical, almost like a cursed carnival vampire. Very strong personality. And the winter skin honestly looks fantastic because it completely changes the mood of the hero while still keeping the sinister feeling underneath. But overall, warriors, the default rework visual may actually be his best look now. Now let's move into the most important part, the teams. Because this is where the new Dorian becomes truly terrifying. One of the strongest combinations immediately is Dorian with Iris. Why? Because Iris already destroys teams through sustained pressure and pure damage, but her biggest weakness has always been survival timing. Now, Dorian helps keep Iris alive longer, while simultaneously allowing continuous healing through marked targets and vampirism. And once Iris survives long enough to fully activate her pressure, entire teams disappear. Another incredibly dangerous synergy is Dorian with Dante. Warriors. This becomes toxic. Dante already survives through dodge mechanics and positioning pressure. Add vampirism sustain behind that, and suddenly every successful attack restores health while the enemy struggles to even land hits consistently. And because Fountain of Blood transfers between enemies, Dante keeps sustaining throughout the fight instead of losing healing momentum. Lara Croft is another huge winner from this rework. Fast attacks, repeated pressure, constant offensive tempo. Everything Lara wants, Dorian amplifies. Every attack becomes sustain. Every offensive chain becomes healing. And suddenly, aggressive Lara teams become much harder to collapse quickly. Kira also benefits massively. Rapid attacks, combined with vampirism, always create dangerous sustained loops. And now, Dorian's reworked mechanics make those loops even more reliable during prolonged engagements. And warriors. One thing many players will underestimate. This Dorian becomes extremely dangerous inside anti-burst compositions. Why? Because modern players are obsessed with immediate kills, instant eliminations, fast pressure. But if Dorian prevents that first collapse, the enemy suddenly enters a sustained war. And sustained wars favor Dorian, especially beside heroes like Astaroth, Dante, Iris, Tempest, Lara Croft, Orion, and even defensive control setups. Now let's talk about positioning. Dorian still rewards intelligent placement because Blood Seal affects nearby allies. This means careless positioning wastes enormous value, but players who master positioning will create terrifying sustained cores. And that is exactly why experienced players love Dorian. He rewards knowledge. He rewards precision. He rewards strategy, not randomness. Now, final verdict. Warriors. This Dorian rework is successful. The hero feels stronger, more modern, more threatening, more consistent. The sustained mechanics flow better. The visual redesign is fantastic. And the strategic value of Dorian inside aggressive sustained compositions may now become incredibly important for the evolving meta. This is not simply an old hero receiving cosmetic improvements. This is a dangerous battlefield support, returning with real impact. And if players begin optimizing these sustained combinations correctly, we may soon see Dorian become one of the most frustrating support heroes in Hero Wars Alliance again. Warriors, this is how we play the game. Not randomly, not blindly, with knowledge, with precision, with control. We don't build randomly. We build with intention. Master the mechanics. Control the fight. Let's break the game together.